Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, a decision in the case of the Menendez brothers. The Menendez brothers pleading after more than 3 decades in prison. Matt Gutman is in San Diego with the brothers being held. Grace and Aaron, the sprawling storm batters the East Coast, bringing dangerous riptides and 20-foot waves. Roads washed out, cars stuck in the sand, and beaches closed, going into one of the last weekends of summer. We look at where the weather is going next. President Trump saying he'll lead the charge to eliminate mail-in ballots, contradicting last year's efforts by his own party to encourage the use of mail-in and early voting. How does he plan to push this through, and what would it mean for voters?
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Juju Chang in for Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We begin with a landmark day for the Menendez brothers. More than 35 years after murdering their parents in their Beverly Hills home, Lyle and Eric Menendez are getting their first chance at parole. Eric Menendez appearing before California's parole board today, pleading his case for why he should be released. His brother Lyle will have his turn tomorrow. And we are following Hurricane Aaron, that Category 2 storm tearing along the East Coast, bringing life-threatening rip currents and wind gusts up to 100 miles an hour, what officials are saying about when the danger is expected to end. But first, in that historic case, here's ABC's chief national correspondent.
Thank you. And I'm so glad you were able to step over Britt Hume. He loves to nap in the hallway.
Happy Thursday, everyone. Good to see y'all. Good to see y'all, my friend Juan Williams.
So Donald Trump did a ride-along earlier tonight with police and troops in Washington, D.C. Not to be outdone, Biden did the same thing in Delaware. And a huge victory for Trump. A court threw out a $500 million fraud judgment against him. New York AG Letitia James is pretty pissed off, saying she's not used to getting her suits thrown out, just let out. Because she's fat. 70,000 Cambodian monks have nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. But the White House asserts this has nothing to do with the newly opened Trump monastery in Cambodia. Democrat Senator Amy Klobuchar says clips of her saying Sydney Sweeney has perfect breasts are fake videos, but admitted she did say Governor Tim Walz rocks a solid B cup. Now, there is also a deep fake of Amy saying Democrats were too fat to wear jeans and too ugly to go outside. But experts say it was easy to spot that fake because rarely does a Democrat tell the truth. Yeah, they're fat. They're fat and they're ugly. Even their cute ones are ugly. You notice that? Yeah. Kristi Noem says the border wall will be painted black, making it so hot it's harder to climb. They're also going to add cameras, so now you'll be filmed while you climb something big and black. No wonder, I haven't even got to the punchline. No wonder Kim Kardashian just showed up.
No, Greg, you had a bunch of old ladies getting
A serial pedophile in Louisiana has agreed to be castrated as part of a plea deal. He was given a choice of having it done surgically or by marrying Meghan Markle. And finally, the very single Kathy Griffin said that she's never sent a vagina picture to anyone ever. Yeah, she doesn't want potential mates wondering who sent me this picture of the LA fires. At least I didn't say La Brea Tar Pits. That was an old field trip. Okay. So how are Democrats fighting Trump's deportations? Forget Cinco de Mayo, here's Stinko de Mayo.
On this Thursday night, as the West pushes for peace, Russia unleashes hundreds of strikes across Ukraine.
They want to continue to pound the Ukrainians until they get what they want.
What Russia is now ruling out, and what Ukraine's president believes is the only way to end the war. The scramble for Palestinians trying to escape Gaza City. Their struggle to find safety as Israeli troops move in. The Prime Minister and the American President finally talk. What was discussed? Plus, he always showed compassion and kindness in the courtroom.
I'm not going to leave you with White House. I'm going to dismiss everything.
Remembering Frank Caprio, the world's nicest judge. Russia is stepping back from the idea of peace talks. Its military launching the biggest wave of attacks on Ukraine in weeks. Nearly 600 drones and 40 missiles, according to Ukraine's Air Force. One person was killed and more than a dozen others were injured. Good evening and thanks for joining us. The U.S. President's peace initiative is fading tonight after Donald Trump met Russia's president in Alaska last week and then with Ukraine's president and European leaders on Monday. There seemed to be some momentum. Now Russia's foreign minister is talking tougher than ever, making it clear having any settlement that includes Western troops in Ukraine would amount to foreign intervention. Redmond Shannon has our top story tonight.
The mundane yet brutal reality of a 3.5-year war with no end in sight. Ukraine says Russia fired hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles overnight, killing one person in the western city of Lviv, close to Poland, 1,000 kilometers from the eastern front line. Russia, which invaded Ukraine, insists it is the one that wants peace, not Ukraine. Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov called recent Western efforts for peace a hopeless venture. He also called into question the legitimacy of Vladimir Zelensky's leadership of Ukraine. Lavrov insisted that Russia must sign off on security guarantees given to Ukraine and that they can't involve NATO forces on the ground.
We're in a kind of chicken and egg situation at the moment.
This former NATO official says despite last week's Alaska summit and this week's European gathering at the White House, Russia and Ukraine are no closer to peace.
It's pretty clear that as long as Putin feels that he's got a military advantage on them.
Tonight, Hurricane Aaron barreling up the East Coast, powerful waves blasting the Outer Banks with dangerous storm surge, flooding roads and battering homes. The worst of it arriving now as the massive storm makes its presence felt. The Cat 2 hurricane so big, it's threatening towns from the Carolinas all the way to Maine. The major parole decision for Eric Menendez with his brother up tomorrow. 36 years after murdering their parents, will the brothers now walk free? President Trump's major legal victory and appeals court tossing out that $500 million fine the president was set to pay in his civil fraud case. Redistricting showdown with that redrawn congressional map approved in Texas. California now ready to launch a new map of its own. What it means for the midterm elections. Campus shooting scare. Police swarming Villanova University after reports of an active shooter. What we know at this hour. She's one of the world's greatest athletes with a major reveal to NBC News. White tennis legend Serena Williams says she's now using an injectable weight loss drug. And we'll show you the moment this NFL quarterback is brought to tears. He didn't have much growing up, came in as the fourth string, how his life just changed. Nightly News starts right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
Asylum seekers being housed in hotels under labour compared with the same period last year.
The question on everyone's lips this morning, can the government get a grip on asylum?
British steel in crisis. The government seizes control of the third largest steel plant.
Elsewhere, the international body responsible for monitoring world hunger is set to officially declare famine in Gaza City as the IDF prepared to take control.
Cadet force boost. The government's launching a major expansion of the National Youth Organisation. Young recruits set to receive drone training.
And with pupils resitting maths and English GCSEs at an all-time high, we're asking, is it time to go back to basics with the curriculum?
And in sport this morning, on a bittersweet night, Crystal Palace win their first competitive European game, but without ever reaching Eze. Emma Raducanu and Jack Draper have favourable draws in the US Open, and hot favourites England kick off the Women's Rugby World Cup tonight.
A little bit chilly out there this morning. Through the day, it's going to be dry for the vast majority, a mixture of sunshine and cloud, and the weather patterns aren't shifting. So that's how we go into the weekend, which is, for many of us, the bank holiday. Join me later for a full forecast.
But join us right now. A very good morning to you on this Friday morning. I'm Eamon Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, Britain is bracing for a weekend of protests as the use of hotels to house asylum seekers continues to split opinion.
Yes, dozens of demonstrations are planned. It's after a High Court judge ordered the removal of migrants from a hotel in Epping.
Now, further hotels in Chichester, in Cannock, in Wakefield and Tamworth expected to be the main flashpoints as local communities seek to have migrants relocated.
While anti-racism groups are coordinating counter-protests, with some warning that this could lead to the worst unrest since last summer's riots.
Theo Wishward is in the studio. He's a political commentator. Theo, what do you think? How do you think this is going to shape up this weekend?
I think it's going to be a very busy weekend for the police. We can expect protests, as you say, got them planned today and on Saturday. And I think it's important that people's voices are heard. There's justified concern out there. I'm sure much of it is voiced by your viewers on GB News. But I think it's important that it remains peaceful. And I think these counter-protests, you can tell exactly why they're doing it. They're doing it to wind up those who want to express concerns about what's going on in their community in the hope that it turns violent and then they can turn around and go, look, it's the far right.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that people, if you've got a protest that you can go, you protest, you do so peacefully, and therefore if you do that, then I think you maintain credibility.
And it is the counter-protest.
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will begin negotiations to end the war in Gaza and free all hostages, but he says any deal will only be on Israel's terms. The Prime Minister's comments come as the Israeli military prepares for a wide-scale assault on Gaza City, which Netanyahu is expected to approve in the coming days. A Ukrainian suspect has been arrested in Italy for allegedly participating in sabotage targeting the Nord Stream pipelines, which transported Russian natural gas to Germany through the Baltic Sea. In September 2022, underwater explosions ruptured the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. It was Russia's main natural gas supply route to Germany prior to the war. President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced a potential major breakthrough in Ukraine's weapons production program. He said a new long-range cruise missile known as Flamingo can strike targets up to 3,000 kilometers away. For reference, Moscow is less than 500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Zelensky said production could start in February. This is DW News from Berlin. There's more news on our website, dw.com. They were designed.
Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak here on France 24. Our headlines early this Friday. Over a dozen people have been killed in two separate attacks in Colombia. The government blames former members of the now defunct FARC rebel group. A drone targeted a police helicopter on its way to destroy coca crops, while a suspected car bombing targeted a military aviation school. Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is moving forward with his plans to take over Gaza City. He also said that he would restart negotiations to return all remaining hostages, appearing to reject a ceasefire deal already accepted by Hamas earlier this week. And Eric Menendez has been denied parole. He and his brother Lyle were convicted of killing their parents over 30 years ago. Their story recently surged back into the spotlight, in part thanks to a Netflix show. Lyle Menendez is due to appear in court with his parole request this Friday.
today, residents of Gaza City flee as the threat of an IDF takeover looms.
Plus, the Women's Rugby World Cup begins. Favourites England take on the USA in the curtain raiser in Sunderland.
It's Friday the 22nd of August. Fear in Gaza City as Israel's Prime Minister gives final approval for an IDF takeover while resuming talks to end the war.
I have instructed to begin immediate negotiations on the release of all our hostages and an end to the war on terms acceptable to Israel.
Eric Menendez is denied parole nearly 30 years after he and his brother were sentenced to life in prison for killing their parents. A decade since the Shoreham airshow disaster, we hear from the parents of one of the 11 victims. A brand new dinosaur is discovered on the Isle of Wight and given a name paying homage to a British great.
And in sport, Crystal Palace come away with victory in their Europa Conference League qualifier, but they look set to lose England star Eberechi Eze to Arsenal.
Hello, very good morning. Thanks for joining us here today. Israeli forces are...
Carlos Eve of Destruction, Wednesday, 8:30.
Today, education ministers agree to a national childcare worker register and CCTV trial.
This is not the end, but it's the next thing that we need to do.
Israel prepares to take control of Gaza City while negotiators work to free the remaining hostages in the Strip. Victoria's elected Aboriginal body to establish an educational institute as part of the nation's first formal treaty. And the first woman to be the Commissioner for New South Wales Police, Karen Webb, calls time on her 38-year-long career. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Melissa McKay. Federal, state and territory education ministers have agreed to establish a national educator register and trial CCTV cameras in hundreds of childcare centres. The meeting was called in response to allegations of child abuse in the early education and care sector. Our national education and parenting reporter Connor Duffy has the details.
The Education Minister, Jason Clare, is calling this the biggest investment in child safety in Australia's history. And as you mentioned, all the state and territory education ministers have signed on. One of the most important measures you touched on there was the National Register of Workers. There's still a bit of the way to go in the design of this, but what the minister said today is that it will include every worker, basically.
This is Asia Now.
Hello and good afternoon. It is 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 a.m. in New Delhi, 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Yasmin Yonkers at this hour. A Thai court acquits former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra of lèse majesté. He was accused of insulting the monarchy over a 2015 interview given during exile. India passes a bill to ban money-based online games as apps backed by billion-dollar investors face shutdowns over addiction and financial risk concerns. And Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is ready for talks to resume on securing hostage release and ceasefire, but only on its terms, despite a recent truce proposal already accepted by Hamas.
Africa News. The news.
A former special advisor to the DR Congo's President Félix Tshisekedi has been acquitted by a military court. Arrested in 2022, François Bayard was charged with conspiring to kill the head of state. Bayard began his career under the regime of Mobutu Sese Seko and rose through the ranks under Joseph Kabila. When President Tshisekedi took office in 2019, Bayard was appointed Special Security Advisor and gained immense power over intelligence and defense matters. But his position also aroused animosity within the presidential entourage. At the end of his 3-year closed-door trial, judges found that the prosecution's case was based on a juxtaposition of isolated facts taken out of context. The prosecution argued that Beyer had participated in a plot to assassinate the president and relied on audio recordings of conversations with his colleagues and on testimony reporting his criticism of the head of state. Judges, however, rejected all of these elements, calling them inconclusive.
As West Africa continues to be flooded by unregulated sexual stimulants, there are growing concerns about the health risks faced by the many who use them. A New York Times report has found that products claiming to be 100% natural herbal remedies to improve virility are resulting in serious consequences. These artisanal drugs are leaving men drooling uncontrollably, suffering from migraines and life-threatening erections, and facing a higher risk of heart attacks. Public health officials in Ivory Coast found that so-called sexual stimulants like the beverage Atote contains a drug commonly known as Viagra, but at levels 8 times higher than the recommended dose. Pills are manufactured in India and smuggled into the country, where they're crushed and mixed with other ingredients to form a drink, which is sold for $1.50 domestically. The United Nations says up to half of the drugs in West Africa are unregulated and result in an estimated 500,000 deaths a year. While Ivory Coast suspended Atote production a few months ago, citing misleading advertising and health risks including death, demand remains high.
Nairobi specifically wants to reprofile the $5 billion loan that Beijing underwrote for the construction of the East African country's modern railway, the finance minister told Reuters Wednesday. If approved, the move would reduce pressure on Kenya's forex reserves. The country spends nearly $1 billion a year in debt service to China. Since 2022, Kenya's debt servicing costs have skyrocketed owing to higher interest rates and a strong dollar. It is not known if Kenya has sought to convert any other dollar-denominated loans. There was no word from Beijing on the news. Of Kenya's $40 billion in external debt at the end of March, it owed $14.4 billion to the World Bank, $7 billion to Eurobond investors, and almost $5 billion to China, according to Treasury data. The Standard Gauge Railway, part of a regional connectivity project, runs from the port of Mombasa on the Indian Ocean to Naivasha in central Kenya.
Ukrainian citizens suspected to be one of the coordinators of the undersea explosions in 2022 that damaged the Nord Stream gas pipelines between Russia and Germany was arrested on Thursday. The suspect, identified only as Sergei K., in line with German privacy rules, was arrested overnight by officers from a police station in Misano, Adriatico, near Italian city of Rimini. The explosion on September 26, 2022 damaged the pipeline, which were built to carry Russian natural gas to Germany under the Baltic Sea. The damage added to tensions over the war in Ukraine as European countries moved to wean themselves off Russian energy sources following the Kremlin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Investigators have been largely tightly on the investigations, but said 2 years ago they found traces of undersea explosives in samples taken from a yacht that was searched as part of the probe. The suspected others used a yacht that set off from German port of Rostock, which had been hired from a German company using forged IDs and with the help of intermediaries, according to prosecutors.
The delayed 2024 African Nations Championship is heading into the last 8, with quarterfinals due to start on Friday. Tournament co-hosts Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda have all gone through. Quarterfinals take place on Friday and Saturday, with the winners heading through to the semis on Tuesday and Wednesday. The grand final kicks off next Saturday, August 30th, at Kasarani Stadium in Nairobi. Kenya emerged as winners of Group A, booking their place in the final 8 alongside runners-up Morocco. Tanzania topped Group B, with Madagascar also getting through after showing impressive resilience. Uganda secured first place in Group C, with Algeria also advancing after a hard-fought campaign. Sudan clinched Group D's top spot, with Senegal as runner-up.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm John Dickerson. Maurice Dubois is off tonight. Hurricane Erin is still whipping up the weather along the northeast coast. The threat of 17-foot waves and 50-mile-an-hour winds prompted the governor of New Jersey to declare a state of emergency, and to declare, because of rip currents, don't go in the water. Many beaches in the New York City area are also closed for swimming. The hurricane hit North Carolina's Outer Banks with powerful gusts and large swells. Tonight, the storm is pulling away from the East Coast and heading into the Atlantic. Meteorologist Rob Marciano leads us off from Virginia Beach. How are the conditions there, Rob?
No, John, the winds are still ripping here along the coastline. Even with Erin over 350 miles away, that huge wind field continues to agitate the ocean here, and this surf has just been relentlessly punishing the eastern seaboard. The western edge of Hurricane Erin delivering coastal flooding and strong winds to the shores of North Carolina, hours before the massive storm finally began to move away from the U.S. Seaside homes enduring the onslaught of ocean water. And despite days spent shoring up important arteries like Highway 12, state transportation authorities kept bridges closed to ensure they'd withstand the weather.
We are worried about the next high tide cycle tonight and the tide cycle after that in the morning.
5 different species of sea turtles visit or nest on the Outer Banks. And this video shows powerful waves pushing through the habitats designed to protect them. And as waves pounded the shores of Virginia Beach, Jeremy Williams and his family tried to make the best out of the bad weather.
Know before you go, right?
Prepare for the worst, prepare for the best.
Exactly.
35 million people are under coastal flood advisories up and down the East Coast. Tom Hansen is on New York's Long Island, where we're seeing extreme surf conditions.
Even with Erin more than 200 miles offshore, we are still feeling its impacts here at Jones Beach. Take a look behind me. This is what should be a sand walkway, but instead it has been swallowed by coastal flooding from those waves that are reaching as high as 10 feet. And when you factor in high tide and waves that could be as high as 16 feet overnight, this floodwater is expected to rise.
Back in the Carolinas, waves climbed over 15 feet, and surfers from across the region were flocking to the beach to ride as well.
We have some neighbors that are big surfers, and they said to come out and check out the waves, so we want to bring the kids out and kind of see that and experience it.
Well, we haven't seen any surfers, either in Kitty Hawk or here in Virginia Beach. I mean, these waves and these swells are just too big, and I'm told it's not fun, and it's dangerous. Now, there are lifeguards on duty, but not to rescue people, but to make sure that people don't even get into the water. It's so rough here, and will continue to be in the next couple of days. John?
Rob Marciano, thank you. And now we turn to Lonnie Quinn, who joins us to tell us what we can expect from this storm and maybe some other weather.
Okay, you betcha. So the good news report on Erin. From this point forward, it's getting farther and farther out to sea. All right, it's made its closest pass. It's also in the process of weakening. When you look at a satellite image and you see all those bright colors, the reds, the yellows, the oranges, where you don't see the bright color, that is the storm ingesting some dry air, and that will erode the storm. This is a weakening storm. It's kind of falling apart. So
Good evening. I'm Jeff Penn.
And I'm Amna Navaz. On the News Hour tonight, an appeals court throws out President Trump's $500 million fine in his civil fraud case.
The Director of National Intelligence slashes her agency's workforce and budget, including an office to track election interference.
And we sit down with Canada's foreign minister to discuss tariffs and the uncertain future of U.S. relations.
The question of how a security guarantee or guarantees will be implemented needs to be fleshed out. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's announced plans to call up 60,000 reservists as it escalates its operation to seize all of Gaza City and to forcibly remove the city's entire population. Al Jazeera reports Israel's carrying out systematic demolitions of Palestinian homes across Gaza City. On Wednesday, Israel killed at least 81 Palestinians, including 5 in an attack on a tent in the Shati camp in Gaza City. The attack killed 3 children, ages 4, 7, and 9, along with their parents. Israel's killed another 20 Palestinians since dawn today. At least 2 more Palestinians have starved to death, bringing the total to 271. Meanwhile, an Israeli newspaper has revealed the Israeli military has a population relocation unit to oversee the forced displacement of Palestinians in Gaza. Earlier today, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned Israel's escalation in Gaza City.
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.